Sangho Dhammayang Bhagavantam Sadhammang Sasangham Imehi Sakare Yatarahang Aropitehi Abhipujayama Sadhu no Bhante Bhagava Suchira Parini Buddhopi Vachima Janata Nukampa Manasa Ime Sakare Dukkatapanna Karapute Patikanhatu Amhakang Digaratang Itaya Sukhaya Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami
Supatipanno
Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami
Handamayang Buddhasa Bhagavato Upapakanamakharang Karamase Namo Tassa
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa
Handamayang Buddha Satiniyang Karamase Thanko Bhagavantang Evang Kalayano Iti
Sado Abhogato Iti Piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichya Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati Sattha Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagavati
Handamayang Dhamma Visatiniyang Karamase Swakhato
Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanaiko Pachatang Viditabo Vinyuhiti
Handamayang Sangha Visatiniyang Karamase Supatipanno
Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Uchupatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Nyāyapatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Samicchipatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Yatidang Cattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pukkala Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ahuneyo Bahu
chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life a child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
So, welcome. Happy that a few people did come to make a great commitment, to commit oneself to the 5 precepts for the next year, ideally even beyond next year. Often when people got inspired by the Lord Buddha himself personally, and then they would take refuge, and we can still read in the canon how they would say that they have gone for refuge to the Buddha, and then will keep the 5 precepts for life. But great to come here and to make that commitment not to do anything to really harm other beings for 2022. The 5 precepts are also known as the Abhaya Dana, the gift of fearlessness. If we contemplate what are we afraid of, that others are killing us or harming our loved ones, that burglars, robbers, taking away things, that maybe you can't fully trust your partner to be faithful to you, that people may lie at us, deceive us, have devious schemes, and that people take alcohol and drugs, so much crime, violence, domestic violence that comes from drug and alcohol. So the moment we make a commitment that we will not intentionally kill any beings, and not even intentionally killing a mosquito, an ant, or cockroach, the moment we make a commitment that we will never take what is not given, we will never steal, the moment you make the commitment that you remain faithful to your spouse, to your partner, the moment you commit to always be truthful, not to say or do anything that is meant to actively deceive anyone and to misrepresent facts and truth. The moment you commit to abstain from alcohol or any intoxicants that cause a lack of shame, a lack of mindfulness, that destroy conscience and then cause intoxication, that moment you give that gift of fearlessness, because no harm is emanating from you. And the special thing is that refers to all beings, not just to your family, not just to your friends, not just to the ones you love, but you make that commitment unconditionally to all beings, whether human or animals, even insects, whether ghosts or devas, whether here in Australia or anywhere else on planet Earth or anywhere in the universe. So it's a great gift of good karma to do grant fearlessness to a vast number, all the beings in the universe. You will not cause any harm to them. Do we have someone who is happy to request the precept? It's just the 5 precepts? Actually, I just realized, I think that one is for the 5 and the 8. So we need only for 5. Would you know how to ask for 5 only? Panchasilani, yeah. No, unfortunately, I just realized this one has got the 8 precepts, I think, as well. Only Panchasilani, and then you don't leave out the Attasilani, you leave those out. Panchasilani Yachama. You leave out the Attasilani Cha, you leave that one out. And the best is if you use a mic, then they can hear you on the podcast. Maybe you may want to switch on the mic. There's a little switch. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Buddhaṃ saranam gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammaṃ saranam gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Te saranagamanam nittitam.
Amabante.
Panatipata vedamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata vedamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Adinatana vedamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana vedamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Kame sumecchachara vedamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kame sumecchachara vedamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Musavata vedamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musawada vedamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Soda medaya matchapamadarthana vedamani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sura medaya matchapamadatthana vedamani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Imani pancha sikkhapadani silena sugating yanti silena bhoga sampada silena nipputing yanti tasma silang visodhaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, and now we can continue with about 20 minutes quiet meditation. brightening our mind, is weakening all darkness, is filling our mind with confidence for the next year. We may not be able to always stop others from killing, but we can stop ourselves. And even if others commit killing of other beings, even humans, we have the certainty that at least we ourselves will definitely not do that, come what may. So at least our heart remains pure. Even if we ended up getting killed ourselves, sometimes maybe even that cannot be prevented. But as long as our own heart is pure, we would just be going to a good place. Don't have to be afraid of anything, because our own heart remains pure. No evil will come from us. The same with stealing. We may not be able to prevent others to burglar us or rob us, but there's a way around it. Let others steal or rob, but we will not steal or rob. We will never take what is not given. We preserve the purity of our own heart. Even if others may be cheating on their partner, on their spouse, may you commit that you definitely will never do it, and your heart remains pure. Others may be lying, deceiving, following devious plans or agendas. There's a way around it. At least we ourselves will always stay with the truth. So wise person once said, the truth remains truth even if not a single person is saying the truth. The lie remains a lie even if everyone is repeating the lie. So whatever others may be doing, we are committed to truthfulness. We are not misrepresenting facts and reality, come what may. And finally, others may get sloshed and inebriated, drugged out, or just a little bit tipsy, as they call it. But we are committed to mindfulness. We wouldn't want to be even the slightest little bit tipsy. We preserve our sense of shame, we preserve our conscience, we preserve our mindfulness, we preserve our sobriety, we preserve our heedfulness, our diligence. We don't intoxicate ourselves. We understand that mindfulness, clear comprehension, shame and conscience is a much superior happiness to dulling down our mind with intoxicants. And now we feel what this commitment is doing with our heart, how it is uplifting our heart, that we have that commitment. We feel how that is brightening, lighting up our heart. To have that commitment, that beautiful, wholesome inspiration, aspiration, resolution. We feel how that is making our heart lighter, how all heaviness and darkness is turned into brightness and lightness just by being fully, resolutely, unshakably committed to these precepts, to truthfulness, whatever comes, to non-harming any beings. And that lightness, that joy, that happiness, called anavajja sukha, blameless happiness by the Buddha. And we can revel in that. We may not be dancing ecstatically like some others will be doing this night, New Year's Eve, but we are reveling, enjoying, indulging in that wholesome happiness of keeping precepts, the wholesome happiness of being virtuous, being committed to sila and virtue. We allow that happiness to grow in our heart, to fill our heart. This is a good, wholesome happiness. We can indulge in it. We can deliberately develop and unfold that happiness. Could you discover some of the Annavajra Sukha, some of that blameless happiness, the happiness that is based on virtue, the happiness that is based on the gift of fearlessness, the happiness that is based on a clear conscience, on the awareness that with that commitment you're not going to harm anyone, that happiness that is based on being completely harmless and a friend wishing well to all beings, the happiness of sila. Okay, we already have our first session. We can pay respects to Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And we will have a short break, just 10 minutes, and come together again for Dhammatalk and more meditation after 10 minutes.
Patipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
Okay, see you in 10 minutes and we will continue. Same with the podcast, is not yet over, just a break and we continue in 10 minutes with more Dhamma talk and meditation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bodhang namang sanghang namasami. So, New Year's Eve, that is time for resolutions, good resolutions for the next year. And that is known also as one of the pavamis, aditthana pavami. And it can be very helpful and supportive for our practice when we form a firm resolution. When I look back at the last year, obviously there was great danger. The virus, a pandemic, and then also all the regulations, limitations, restrictions which were done by the government. And a typical response to that. Now, what is a typical response to danger? Now, we know that it's called the flight or fight reaction. And this is still on the instinctual level. You can see it in animals. When they are in danger, they will either run away, or if you corner them and they can't run away, kind of forced to fight, and then they will fight. So this is kind of a deep programming when we encounter danger, that we respond either with fear, angst, anxiety, and I think we have seen a lot of that in the last 2 years. Or the other response is anger, hatred, fighting, attacking, aversion. Neither is skillful, isn't it? We know that both are based on defilement. So when we encounter danger, we have to be aware of that. We have to have that mindfulness and to recognize that danger, that we don't fall into this dichotomy and these two extremes. We're like a wild animal, either running away, or attacking and fighting. Either anxiety or anger, aversion. So, of course, now everyone may have their own aspirations and resolutions for the new year, which you may form. But if I suggest anything, my suggestion would be that we all form a resolution to get out of these two extremes, these two unskillful responses, either by fear, anxiety, or by anger, aversion, hatred. That we overcome that, and my suggestion is that we make a resolution to use the 4 Brahmavihāras as an approach for the next year. What are the 4 Brahmavihāras, the 4 divine abodes, the divine abidings for the mind? Well, the first one is metta, loving kindness to all beings. And sure enough, we wish everyone to live long, healthy and happily. That is a more skillful response to danger, and to wish everyone to be happy and well, to be strong and healthy. To wish everyone to develop the Dhamma, to develop virtue, to be generous and build up punya, to wish everyone that they practice bhavana and that they may attain the full freedom and liberation, destruction of defilements, the experience of Nibbana. That is the most positive wish that we can have for all beings. So I suggest that let us all develop that quality of loving kindness, metta, Dhamma, in 2022. There's so much anger, there's so much division which we can see, which is opening up, because if we have a fearful, stressful, dangerous situation, if we have all kinds of regulations which are constantly changing, if we have all kinds of restrictions, it is natural that people become tense. And when people are tense and anxious and respond maybe with flight-fight reactions, it is natural that conflict arises between human beings. And metta is a beautiful way of reducing conflict. Metta is the opposite of anger and conflict. The Venerable Subhuti, the foremost of what the Buddha called Adana Vihari, someone who dwells in freedom from conflict, free from conflict. And even if others may lose their nerve, which is a common occurrence when there is stress, anxiety, limitation, restrictions, pandemic, other people may occasionally flip, others may get angry at us, we may encounter hostility. The hostility can never be resolved by anger and hostility. The Buddha said, this is an eternal law. Only non-anger, non-hostility can overcome anger and hostility. Only loving kindness, only the Brahmavihāras can work as a medicine for someone who is angry. There's not only viruses that can attack our bodily health, there's also sickness which can attack our mind, the defilements. The anger is like a sickness. So if we encounter someone who is sick, if you hear that someone has got coronavirus and they're back home in quarantine, do you usually feel angry at them? No, we wish them well, we wish them that they quickly recover. You may be kind, you may be even dropping them some food when they're in quarantine because they can't go out, supporting your friends. So we should have the same attitude if we encounter someone who is hostile, angry, who is stressed out, anxious, and maybe then responding with aversion and anger to us or to others or to anyone. We should act as a doctor. This is what the Buddha recommended. When you encounter someone who is suffering from the sickness of anger and aversion, be a doctor to them, give them some treatment. And what is the pill? What is the medicine against anger? Shouting at them and being angry at them, will that reduce their anger? No, only metta can do that. The medicine for someone who has got the sickness of anger and hatred is loving kindness. So let us all practice lots of loving kindness in 2022, because in this, for 2 years now, stress situation, fear situation, limitations, restrictions, changing regulations, it's natural that many people they get agitated and they come out in anger, hostility. And if we can radiate loving kindness, that is our contribution to be a doctor for the mental illness of anger and aversion. And the next Brahmavihāra is karuna, compassion. Compassion means wishing others to be free from suffering, to be free from pain, to be healed from sickness, to be cured from illness, to be freed from disease, to be freed from defilements. I really love that Brahmavihāra in particular, because it can be such a skillful response when we encounter suffering. And of course, in a pandemic and with all these regulations, restrictions, people locked in and so on, there's a lot of suffering. And when we witness suffering, there's two dangers. The one very bad defilements when we witness suffering is what the Buddha calls, what we call cruelty, that we even enjoy other beings suffering. And we could actually see that already happening, and some people, they send out tweets and Facebook posts where they delight when people now who have a different view, different opinion from them, if they get sick, then they even delight in that and think this is something good, just because they disagree with them. So that is the danger of cruelty. And even anyone who disagrees with us, anyone who has harmed us, anyone who has views we totally reject, even so, if they suffer, we never delight in that. We never wish anyone to suffer. And if anyone has an unskillful, unwholesome or deluded view, we don't wish them now to suffer for that. We wish them, may they be freed from their delusions. May they come to overcome their ignorance and delusion. We never wish them suffering. We don't respond with cruelty to any being suffering, but we always wish them to be free from suffering. We wish them to be free from misguided, misinformed, and deluded views and opinions and convictions. But there's also what is called the close danger, the close enemy of compassion. What is another possibility? We encounter lots of suffering. We see other beings immured in really bad suffering. And we don't respond with cruelty, but there's still another danger. And we get overwhelmed by pity. And we have so much empathy with those who are suffering that now our mind goes down as well and we become depressed. And that is a close danger of when we encounter suffering in others. So you have to focus on that quality of karuna, because karuna will never pull our mind down. If it is true karuna, if it is the intention, may you be free from pain and suffering, may you be free from sickness and disease, may you be free from any defilements, from kilesas. That intention is uplifting, that is raising our mind, making our mind light and buoyant. And it can be the most skillful way of dealing with all this suffering which we can see worldwide now. If we just watch that every day, if we read about people dying, being sick, being in hospitals being overwhelmed, and then there's so much suffering and our mind gets overwhelmed, becomes dark and depressed. Karuna is the way out. Rather than focusing on the suffering, focusing on the intention in our heart that we wish them to come out of that pain, that we wish them to be freed and healed from that suffering. That wish for healing in our time right now, in this pandemic, and when so many people are suffering from anxiety, tension, lockdown and so on. The healing, I think, is a key term for 2022. And that intention, that will in our heart, to wish healing, healing to all beings. Just that word, healing, may you be healed. Can you notice how that uplifts? Much better than getting a mitra samadhi in a wrong concentration on all this suffering we hear about all the time in the media. Much better than responding with fear, anxiety. The response to the suffering is arousing the quality of karuna in our heart. And the quality of karuna is based on that intention. May you be healed. May all beings heal from sickness. May all beings heal from anger and fear. May all beings be liberated and freed from wrong, misguided, deluded views. May all beings be freed from all defilements. May they be healed from mental affliction, the kilesas. At the moment we focus on that, the mind can be bright and radiant, even if there is suffering. We may not be able to eliminate all suffering. In fact, for sure, how could we possibly do that in the human world and the animal world? But we can always wish to ourselves and everyone else to be free from suffering and to be healed. And that wish is it. That wish is what is uplifting our mind. Now the third one of the divine abodes is mudita, sympathetic joy. And that is a very important quality because there's a lot of darkness in the pandemic. It's not a very joyful time. Ne? Is that something you enjoy? Lockdown? Can't maybe even visit your loved ones, can't travel to your home country, can't go maybe even to the funeral of your own parents. You know people who are sick, you know people who have long COVID, you may know people who are dying. Now, this is all not joyful. So there's a danger that our mind experiences a lot of internal misery. But internal misery and depression, this is also defilement. That is nothing beneficial to anyone. So we have to find sources of joy, sources of happiness, even in lockdown, even in pandemic, even if people around us are being infected, or even if people around us, the people we know, end up being sick, suffering, and even dying. We can't allow our heart to go into this hole of dejection, negativity, and being overwhelmed by all this suffering. And mudita is exactly that source of joy and happiness. Because even in a pandemic, even if people are dying, there's also a lot of good things happening. And like today, all the people who came here to commit to maintain their sila, their virtue, the 5 precepts in 2022, come what may. And if we reflect on that, this is mudita, then we feel joyful. Even during the pandemic, Dhammagiri, in the most extreme time, usually very short here in Queensland, we had only 2 people doing a dharna drop-off, but most of the time we were still open and functioning and very few limitations. Then people are continuing to make good karma. People are continuing to practice generosity. So we have to be careful in the factor of manasikara, what do we pay attention to? And even in a pandemic, when there's suffering, lockdowns, people dying, there's still people keeping precepts. There's still people making punya. practicing generosity, there's still, even if you sit in lockdown, you can keep the precepts, you can take refuge, you can practice meditation, you can develop samadhi, you can develop insight, you can contemplate impermanence, dukkha, Four Noble Truths, non-self. And whenever these wholesome things are being done, whether ourselves, whether other beings, we can rejoice in that. We can feel mudita for them. It's just a question, what do we pay attention to? And you may have been in lockdown, you may not have been able to travel to your home country or seeing your loved ones as much as you liked. But you may have been able to keep your precepts. You may have been able to even listen more to Dhamma talks than before that. You may have friends who did the same and who kept their precepts, who increased their Dhamma practice, who had more time maybe even to meditate, who spent more time online than listening to Dhamma. And we can choose what we give attention. It doesn't have to be all the time sickness, pandemic, lockdowns. We can just as well pay attention to all the goodness that is happening. We can pay attention to the goodness we are practicing in our own heart, our generosity, our virtue, our efforts in meditation. We actually had quite good attendance in the last 2 years, even more. We had much more attendance now online. We had quite a few people here. We had the first time 4 monks staying. So all that goodness is there, and all we have to do is paying attention to the goodness that is happening and rejoicing in that. And then even in a pandemic, our heart has got that endless sources of joy and happiness based on mudita, on sympathetic joy. So whenever you notice your mind going down, becoming dark, heavy, dejected, we have to notice that. And the problem is this is going for 2 years now, and it can sneak in very gradually, and then people don't notice it. Mind getting darker and they don't notice it. So we need the mindfulness to recognize that. And then we have to put in a big effort into this crucial factor of manasikara, yoniso manasikara, wise attention, thorough attention, skillful attention. What do you pay attention to? Don't get stuck only in this constant reporting of sickness and death and so on. Instead, divert your attention to all the goodness that is still happening. Just think about the Buddha and his qualities. The Buddha's freedom, liberation, his supreme wisdom, his compassion in giving the Dhamma to us. Think about that great qualities of Ajahn Man, Luang Por Cha, or the other great teachers, Luang Por Lien. None of that has been taken away by the pandemic. We can simply pay attention to the biographies, to the qualities of all the great Kuba Ajahns. We pay attention to the endless virtues and supreme qualities and bala and powers of the Tathagata. And we pay attention to that, and our mind will have joy and happiness. So mindfulness to notice when the mind gets dejected. And then this is white effort. People laugh at the heroic white effort. Being out in the forest with the tigers, Ajahn Man. Tiger's a ghost and you're facing it in the remote jungle. Great. But there's also a subtle effort. And that is often the most important one, just noticing that your mind is paying attention to the wrong things which make you dejected, angry, upset. And then having the mindfulness to notice it. And putting your attention, what you pay attention to, onto something good and wholesome, the qualities of the Buddha, your virtue, your acts of punya, all your Dhamma friends and the good things they are doing, the qualities of the great Ajahns, their teachings. And if you pay attention to that, then there will be mudita, rejoicing in their wholesome good qualities, and then there's happiness in your heart. And we have to maintain that brightness and happiness in our heart after these 2 years. And finally, the fourth quality, upekkha, equanimity. Neither liking nor disliking, neither rejecting nor grasping. What's the next regulations? And suddenly you get locked down again. Suddenly the cases go up, the cases go down. And our mind may be vacillating according to cases going up, cases going down. Instead, we can practice equanimity. We can keep our mind even. And how do we establish equanimity? By contemplating, by using wisdom, by contemplating impermanence. And if we get agitated due to perceived danger, we can contemplate the nature of our body. The body consists of the 4 elements, earth, water, heat and wind. And each of these 4 elements is impermanent. Out of control. We were intending to walk around the Bodhi tree, but I think we have a little bit too much water element this night. We may just do our normal circumambulation here in the Dhamma hall. Can't control this water element. Would be nicer if it was a beautiful clear night with the stars out and dry and we can do outside. A water element is beyond our control. It's impermanent. It's not safe. Externally is the same with the internal water element. And a body that consists of these 4 elements, which are all impermanent, out of control, not me, not mine. Now, this body is certainly also not me, not mine, out of control and impermanent. So, if we contemplate the impermanence of our body, then we weaken and ultimately abandon the attachment to the body. We are no longer identified with this body. We are not grasping at this body. We may still carry it around, do whatever is required to maintain it in good shape, but we are just now a caretaker. We are no longer a proud owner of this body, because we can see, we contemplate, we understand the impermanence of our body. We understand the impermanence of all other bodies, loved ones, enemies, so-called enemies. They're all impermanent. One day everyone will be dead. And then consciousness and moving on to take on a new body, as long as there's still attachment. So let us contemplate impermanence of bodies. And then we will have an equanimity of case numbers going up. Imagine if you had no attachment, no identification to your body, would you be worried about getting sick? No, then there's so much sickness and something concerning the body. The other thing that people are worried about is, of course, feeling, particular painful feeling. Or if I get the virus and I can't breathe, must be horrible feeling. For sure, and I will be feeling awful if I can't breathe. Now this is Vedana, this is Dukkha Vedana. So let us contemplate Vedana, let us contemplate in particular Dukkha Vedana. Whatever pain we feel, it never lasts, it's changing, it's impermanent, so that we can let go of feeling. That we can see all feeling as netang mama ne sohamasmi na me so atati. Now this painful feeling is not me, it's not my feeling, it's not my pain. This pain is not myself, I don't own this pain, it's not mine, not me, not mine, not self. Now this is a contemplation that will establish equanimity in our heart. We are no longer agitated, we are no longer thrown around by the winds of change, by the eight worldly Dhamma. We are no longer agitated when cases go up, we are no longer dejected, we are no longer over the moon and heedless. Suddenly the cases are down. And we remain calm, balanced, equanimous, because we have contemplated, we are contemplating impermanence, so that we are not attached, we are not stuck. We are not identified with body, with feelings. And then all these things lose their threatening character. We can't be frightened by it anymore. Okay, so my little suggestion for next year, that we get out of this flight or fight response, the typical animal instinct response to danger, and we can see that in our society. This is where they go. Fear, anxiety, anger, enmity, conflict. We understand that. Once we understand that, and when we notice that natural, instinctual urge in our heart to jump into these two extremes of either fear or hostility, anger directed at something out there, we don't buy into that, we don't do that. Instead, we aspire, we are firmly resolved to apply these four divine abidings. And we use wisdom, whichever one is the most suitable in each situation. In general, we just wish everyone to be well. May they be well and happy and live long, healthy and happily. When we encounter suffering and we notice our mind either goes into cruelty and we feel even, oh, this person should suffer, we immediately notice and we go for karuna instead, wishing them to be free from suffering. But also if we encounter suffering and we notice we have too much kind of empathy and now our heart gets dragged down by witnessing that suffering, we focus on karuna, we focus on that intention, that uplifting intention. May you be free from that pain and suffering, may you be healed. Let us focus on that intention, this beautiful word, healing. Not so much fighting, and even the virus. In our modern medicine, it's often so much about fighting, eliminating, killing. I think the only kind of elimination was with smallpox. And even the smallpox virus is still around in all these warfare laboratories where they kept them. But no other disease, I think, could have been eliminated. But what normally happens is that the human beings and the germs and the viruses have to find some way of coexisting. This is how our whole body works, it's coexistence. We couldn't live without the bacteria in our guts. Our skin wouldn't function with all the bacteria and germs and so on, which cause a balance. The only point is having that in right balance. So my hope would be that maybe even the Omicron is leading in that direction, and that we can have an end game where it may not be possible in eliminating that virus, but where we are able to coexist. And maybe if we practice these Brahmavihāras, ideally this virus will mutate and become maybe more contagious, but less and less dangerous. And then hopefully one day we can live in coexistence like human beings can coexist with colds and flus. Hasn't been possible, we couldn't eliminate cold and flu. But fortunately, it is usually a disease our body can deal with without getting totally rid and exterminating the virus. Now, there's also quite a bit of viruses often in our body, and the immune system can keep it in check without necessarily totally eliminating it, getting away a little bit from this extreme fighting, elimination, destruction, and getting more into the Brahmavihāras. And an appeal to the virus to be minimal harmful, and then we wouldn't mind him so much if he's still around. You don't kill us, and we don't mind so much if we still get infected with it. And we can coexist, hopefully. That would be one aspiration I have. And then mudita, we need mudita. We need a source of joy. And in all this pandemic, we can find so many good things people are still doing where we can rejoice in. You can find so many good qualities in your heart. Whenever your mind is down, find something to put your attention that is beautiful and wholesome and good and beneficial and inspiring, the Buddha, Ajahn Chah, Lumpur Liam, and so on. And then feel that mudita to uplift your heart. And finally, practicing wisdom, contemplating impermanence, not self, in particular about the body and feeling and dukkha vedana. That our heart can be even and equanimous, upekkha, based on wisdom and understanding impermanence and not self. So that our heart is not bouncing around, is not going up and down like the waves of the virus, up and down, the infection waves. If you have equanimity, your mind doesn't go into waves of heedlessness and then dejection, heedlessness, dejection. Your mind's mindful, aware, balanced, equanimous. Okay, any comments or questions? Yeah?
In practice of karuna, sometimes maybe we are wrong to go down the direction. When we see somebody suffering, we sometimes tell the person, we share your pain, I can understand your pain, I share your pain. And you think by saying that the person who is suffering feels better, his pain is shared. But from what you are saying, by doing that, we drag ourselves down. So it's the wrong practice of karuna.
A very good question. As someone just says, now often we say, now I share your pain, and then that person feels uplifted. In German we say, no, shared pain is only half the pain. There is this quality of empathy, and it's a very important starting point for karuna. Because if I can't relate, if I can't feel the pain others experience, now how would I have the intention for them to be free from that? So empathy and karuna are related, and it is important that we can open up our heart and we can feel a little bit how others feel, because we will not really be able to start this intention. But you see, the danger is if you really do that in the sense of sharing, that you fully feel the pain of someone else, then if you do that a lot, it will be overwhelming. And in the sense that it doesn't really help the other person if you are now depressed yourself. It doesn't help him at all, or her. So I wouldn't take that too literally when we say, I share your pain. It doesn't mean that now I have to make my mind also painful. It means I acknowledge your pain, I have empathy, and now I wish you that you will be freed from that, that you can come out of that, that you can be healed. So I think the empathy and the feeling the pain of others is a good starting point. But to really develop karuna, that is this intention of may you be free from it, may you be healed. And not just sharing in the sense that I take on all this pain and become depressed myself. And I think the other person gets more out of it if you radiate out that wish to them that they be free from the pain, and they would get less out of it if now you are down. But I think it's a very good question, because this is a really crucial difference there. And I think some people may not be getting the full benefit of karuna if they practice it too much just on the side of empathy and just trying to feel all this pain of all these beings. And your mind goes down. The crucial one is to focus on the intention. May you heal, may you be free from that. Thanks for that question.
Another question.
Yeah.
Sorry, anybody?
See,
In Upekha, you mentioned focus on impermanence. Could we also focus on Dhamma, from impermanence?
for the podcast, someone is asking, I mentioned impermanence as a contemplation to establish upekkha, equanimity. Can we also reflect on karma? Yes, the Buddha also recommended reflection on karma. Now, for example, I'm getting upset because someone is hurting me. So I can reflect now on karma. First of all, if I didn't have any bad karma from the past, this hurting wouldn't happen. This external agent is only an external agent which is bringing my own karma to me. Secondly, also no need to wish this external agent now revenge or something, because when they're really hurting me and doing something unskillful, they will have lots of bad karma, and they will have to experience the results in the future. So if we reflect on karma, both in terms of what I experience as a result of my own karma and what others are doing, they will inherit the results of their actions, then we have no need for resentment, anger, being the avenger and punisher. But we can simply have equanimity, and we can accept what happens to us, recognizing that it is karma and that the most important thing is to protect your precepts, because then you're not making any bad karma, and no bad karma will come to you in the future. Yeah, very good question.
Coming back to karuna,
exactly like someone coming back to karuna, and it's not so much feeling the pain, I would maybe call it now understanding someone else's pain. If you're trying to fully feel all the suffering of other beings, and then you feel lots of suffering. But usually, if I'm in pain, I personally don't have so much the expectation, may someone else feel that now. But it's more like if they can understand how I suffer. And I think that is a difference. And understanding someone's suffering and having some awareness, what they're going through, doesn't necessarily mean that you fully feel it, but you understand and are aware. And based on that awareness, you can then arouse that intention, may you be free from it. And of course, if you have some ability and possibility to actively help them, you can of course do also active karuna. And even just some little gesture, you may not be able to take that pain away completely from them, but maybe you can ameliorate it a little bit. And that is particularly effective. So then there's a mental intention. I think you brought out this difference. It's not so much that I have to feel other beings suffering, but I'm aware of it, I understand it, and that already gives them this feeling of being understood. And then based on that comes the intention, may you heal, may you be free. And then our mind is bright and uplifted, and the other person is also feeling a little bit less suffering. Okay, we can still sit a few minutes meditation, not too much left, just 10 minutes. I suggest that we can just savor the different flavors of these 4 beautiful Brahmavihāras in our short meditation now. Okay, we will have another little less than half an hour break and come together again at 11 for asking forgiveness from Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, forming our resolution. And due to an abundance of water element, we will not do the circumambulation around the Bodhi tree, but I think numbers are just right that we do the normal circumambulation around the Dhamma hole. That may be a little bit easier, that no one falls over and slides down the slope there. And also to the podcast, normally I didn't want to put it on because silent circumambulation on the Bodhi tree wouldn't be so attractive, but as we are having it in the Dhamma hall now, I will put another podcast on at 11 as well. So if you'd like to join again at 11 for asking forgiveness from Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, feel most welcome. I will schedule that. Okay, let's pay respects to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and then have the break.
Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho sangham namami.
See you at 11 and please enjoy. Do we have some nice drinks there, Stefan? And some nice fruit juices and some little chocolates? Okay. We'll just do the dedication of offerings before we do the forgiveness ceremony.
Patipanno yassa bhagavato savaka sangho dhammayang bhagavantam sadhammang sasangham imehi sakare yataraham arobitehi abhipujayama sadhu no bhante bhagava suchira parini buddhomi pachima janathanukampa manasa ime sakare dugatapanna karabhute patikanhatu amhakanti karatang idaya sukhaya arahang samma sambuddho bhagava buddhang bhagavantang abhivademi. Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami.
Supatipanno
Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami.
Andamayang buddhasa bhagavato upapakanamakarang karomase. Namo tassa
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
So before we move into the new year, it is always good to get a clean slate, and we can ask forgiveness from Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, so that whatever regrets or remorse we have, whatever wrong actions we may have committed in this past year, we can completely let go of, we completely forgive ourselves, we put them at the feet of the Lord Buddha, fully knowing that He will forgive whatever we honestly own up to, and in particular if we have the resolution to do better in the future. There's no point hanging on to old faults. The point is to understand we did something wrong, acknowledge it, and then to focus on the future, so that in the future we will not do the unskillful action again. Please repeat after me line by line, first in Pali and then in English. Kayena vachaya vacetasava.
Kayena vachaya vacetasava.
Buddhe kokamang pakatang mayayang.
Buddhe kokamang pakatang mayayang.
Achayang patiganhatu antang
Achaya bhaktikanha tu antang
kalantare sangvaditung va buddhem.
kalantari sangvaritung va buddhe.
By body, speech or mind,
By body, speech or mind,
for whatever wrong action I have committed towards the Buddha,
for whatever wrong action I've committed towards the Buddha,
may my acknowledgement of fault be accepted,
may my acknowledgement of fault be accepted,
that in future there may be restraint regarding the Buddha.
that in the future there may be restraint regarding the Buddha.
Please bow. Kayena vachaya vachetasava
Kayena vachaya vachetasava
dhamme kokamang pakatang mayayang
dhamme kukamang pakatang mayayang
dhammo patiganhatu achayantang
dhammo patikanha tuachayantang
kalantare sangvaditung vadhamme.
kalantari sangvaritung vadhamme.
By body, speech or mind,
By body, speech or mind,
for whatever wrong action I have committed towards the Dhamma,
for whatever wrong action I've committed towards the Dhamma,
may the Dhamma acknowledge my fault,
may the Dhamma acknowledge my fault,
that in future there may be restraint regarding the Dhamma.
that in future there may be restraint regarding the Dhamma.
Please bow. Kayena vachaya vachetasava
Kayena vachaya vachetasava
sanghe kokamang pakatang mayayang
sanghe kukamang pakatang mayayang
sangho patiganhatu achayantang
sangho patikanha tuachayantang
kalantare sangvaditung vasanghe.
kalantari sangvaritung vasanghe.
By body, speech or mind,
By body, speech or mind,
for whatever wrong action I have committed towards the Sangha,
for whatever wrong action I've committed towards the Sangha,
may my acknowledgement of fault be accepted,
may my acknowledgement of fault be accepted,
that in future there may be restraint regarding the Sangha.
that in future there may be restraint regarding the Sangha.
Please bow. And now is the time, as we are moving into the new year and we will do our circumambulation, to clearly form a wholesome resolution in adetana for the next year. And I like to share my aspiration for the coming year 2022. May all the pavami of the Buddha, may the pavami of the Triple Gem, may the power and the great qualities and virtues and the infinite beauty and strength of the Triple Gem and all the Kuba Ajahns help us that the coronavirus will continue to evolve and mutate and become milder and more harmless. And dear virus, we are quite happy not to hate you, not to eliminate you or exterminate you. Let's make a deal. May you please become less and less harmful, less and less deadly. May you evolve and mutate to turn into a normal cold. And once you are as mild as a normal cold, we will be happy to coexist with you. We wouldn't mind having a sniffle and a headache if it doesn't go any further. May you please be so mild that we can easily deal with your coronavirus like the other colds. May you mutate to be so harmless. And once you're as harmless as all the other colds, we are quite happy to coexist. We are quite happy to share you around. Even we wouldn't have to lock down. We wouldn't have to wear the mask anymore. And we are fine to deal with a cold-like illness. And then both of us, all the human beings and the sickness, can exist in coexistence. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Time for our circumambulation. As mentioned before, we have a little bit too much water element around. So we will just circumambulate not the Bodhi tree, but our normal way of walking around the Dhamma hall. But when you're on that eastern side, you can gaze at the Bodhi tree, just like the Buddha was gazing in gratitude at the Bodhi tree after his enlightenment. So when we pass there, we can at least gaze at the Bodhi tree with appreciation. At the end, when we finish, we can all put the flowers here into these 4 vases in front of the shrine. No, the idea was that you're all sitting there again. Okay, well done. And we finish off by doing the Metta Sutta and spreading Metta and the 4 Brahmavihāras to all beings. That is on page 37, following in the chanting book. And after we have finished that, we do the sharing of merits with all beings on page 33.
Just wait briefly until you get the charting books. They're just getting the charting books. Just a moment.
Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none.
unseen, those sitting near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
Now let us chant the reflections on universal well-being.
May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs.
I will abide,
Pervading one quarter with a heart imbued with loving kindness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with gladness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with equanimity, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will.
And finally, we will share merits with all beings, page 33 in the chanting book.
Now let's chant the verses of sharing with aspiration. Through
The goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life, may they soon attain the threefold bliss, and realize the deathless, through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge, unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
We can pay respects to Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Apivademi. Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Happy New Year. Savati Pimai. Suba Alot Arudag. Frohes neues Jahr. Okay, this is the New Year's program at Dhammagiri. Anumodana, it was a pleasure having you here. How did you like my little aspiration, making a deal with the virus? We don't hate the virus, we don't hate that sickness, we are not eliminating them. But the virus on his side, he mutates to become very mild, just turning into a cold. And when the virus is just a normal cold, then we can happily coexist and we don't have to lock us down. We wouldn't even mind if he is spreading to others. We can handle a normal cold and then we can all live peacefully together. So please, virus, calm down, turn into a cold. Okay, tomorrow we have the Pavitra chanting at noon and our normal program Sunday, where you all have a happy, prosperous 2022. Yeah. 9:30, you can take the precept again if you like, tomorrow. Can't take them too often. And whenever you do a wholesome good act, form the aspiration that this virus will mutate into a normal cold, that we can happily coexist. Okay, enjoy 2022. Okay, they're wishing us Happy New Year from the podcast as well. Catherine, Mandav,